When a woman misses you, she does these 5 things, and almost no man notices them. There is something that no seduction course, no self-help book, and no well-meaning friend has ever explained clearly. When a woman truly misses you, she does not tell you. She does not send you a message saying, "I've missed you." She does not suddenly appear with a romantic declaration. She does not call at midnight to confess what she feels. What she does is far more subtle, far more silent. And if you do not know what you are looking at, you will miss it entirely, without even realizing what slipped away. I am Liz Rose, a relationship expert, author, and researcher of emotional dynamics between men and women. For years, I have studied attraction, male behavior, emotional intelligence, and the patterns that bring people together or drive them apart. Today, I want to share with you what I've learned through my research, my professional experience, and the thousands of stories I have encountered throughout my journey. If you feel there is something between you and someone in your life, something real but unnamed, this is for you. And before we go further, I want to ask you something. If you believe there is another man in your life who needs to hear this, share this with him. Sometimes a single conversation can change the entire course of a relationship. You could be the reason that happens. Over the years, I have heard the same story told from 2 completely different angles. She tells me, "I was giving him all the signs. I don't understand how he didn't see it." He tells me, "I had no idea she felt anything. If she had just said it clearly, everything would have been different." And here is the truth that no one wants to say out loud. When women miss someone, they rarely express it directly, not because they are complicated, not because they are playing games, but because for many women, showing longing in an explicit way makes them feel vulnerable in a way that is deeply uncomfortable. So they encode it. They transform it into behaviors that appear ordinary, into small gestures that, if you do not know what they mean, are easily mistaken for indifference, for coincidence, for nothing at all. But they are none of those things. What I am going to share with you today are not theories. They are real patterns I have observed across thousands of stories, patterns that repeat regardless of age, culture, or emotional maturity. They appear in women of 20 and women of 50, in relationships that just began, and in bonds that span decades. When a woman truly misses you, there are 5 things she does, almost instinctively, and from today, you will know how to recognize them. Signal 1. She finds a reason to reach out that has nothing to do with what she actually feels. Imagine this. You have not spoken in a while, or perhaps you exist in that gray space where you are not a couple, but not strangers either. And then, out of nowhere, you receive a message. She sends you an article that reminded her of something you said once. She asks about a restaurant recommendation you mentioned months ago. She writes to ask how someone in your family is doing, someone she barely knows. And you think, that's strange. Why is she sending me this? The answer is simple, even if she will never say it directly. That message is not about the article. It is not about the restaurant. It is not about your family member. That message is about you. It is about the desire to reconnect without exposing herself to the risk of rejection. In my research, I call this an emotional pretext, the way people build bridges of connection without risking being turned away. And most of the time, it is not even fully conscious. She herself may not entirely know why she reached out. Let me give you a real example. Maria and Carlos have not spoken for 3 weeks after an argument. On a Tuesday morning, Maria sends him a meme about coffee with the caption, "This reminded me of your impossible mornings without caffeine." Carlos smiles, sends back an emoji, and moves on with his day. What Carlos does not see is that Maria had been holding her phone for 2 days, searching for the right moment to write to him. She reviewed the message 12 times before sending it. She deleted it and rewrote it. That meme was everything she could offer in that moment. It was the biggest gesture she knew how to make. First signal, when a woman misses you, she invents reasons to get closer. No matter how small the gesture appears, the gesture itself is the message. Signal 2, she knows more about you than she should. This one is subtler, and that is exactly what makes it harder to detect. A woman who misses you begins to pay a quiet, sustained attention to everything you are. Without making it look like she is watching you, she sees your stories before they disappear. She makes a comment that reveals she read something you posted weeks ago. She casually asks a mutual friend how you are doing, as if she is not particularly interested in the answer. But there is always something that gives her away: the level of detail. An indifferent person does not remember details. A person who misses you does. If she mentions something you posted 15 days ago, or she remembers a minor conversation you had months back, or she knows exactly what project you are working on, even though you have not spoken in weeks, that is not coincidence. That is sustained attention. That is someone who is keeping you very present in their mind, even if they are not saying a word about it. And here is something that contradicts what many men assume. And I want you to hear this clearly. Contrary to what most people expect, a woman who misses you does not always move closer. Sometimes she steps back slightly. She observes from a distance that feels emotionally safe to her. Because for many women, getting too close means risking rejection. And that kind of pain cuts in a particular way. So instead of closing the distance, she watches quietly. She stays informed. She remains near you in ways you cannot fully see. Think of Laura. She has not spoken to Antonio in months, not since he chose to pull away. One evening, at a gathering with friends, someone mentions that Antonio is thinking about changing jobs. Laura says nothing in the moment, but that night, she texts a mutual friend. Is it true about Antonio and the job? How is he doing? That question was not about the job. It was about Antonio. It was about needing to know he was okay. It was, in the end, a small way of staying close to someone you miss when you do not know how to say so. Second signal. When a woman misses you, she knows more about you than you realize, and she holds that information quietly, the way you hold something that matters to you. Signal 3. Her behavior changes when you are present. Many men describe a strange feeling they get around a certain woman, a tension that is not quite negative, a different kind of energy they cannot put into words. When I ask them what they observe specifically, they say things like, "She suddenly gets serious," or "She laughs more than usual," or "She seems nervous around me and I don't know why." And I always say the same thing. That is not indifference. That is impact. You produce an effect in her, and when someone produces an effect in you, it is because they occupy an important place in your inner world, even if neither of you has named it yet. Women who feel longing for someone experience a kind of emotional tension when that person is near. There is a contrast between what they feel and what they do not want to show, between the desire to get closer and the fear of being too transparent. And that contrast produces behavior that looks contradictory from the outside. She laughs too loudly or suddenly goes quiet when she was expansive before. She starts talking more than usual, filling the silence, or she becomes monosyllabic. She suddenly takes more care with her appearance when she knows you will be there, or she arrives looking deliberately casual, as if she couldn't care less, even though you know she always takes pride in how she presents herself. All of these apparently contradictory behaviors have the same root. You matter to her. And that destabilizes her in a way she cannot fully control. Miguel and Elena have known each other for years. They are part of the same group of friends, though they drifted apart some months ago. When they end up at the same gathering, Elena seems different. She talks to everyone else with ease and warmth, but when Miguel approaches, she becomes more serious. Her answers grow shorter. She avoids direct eye contact. Miguel reads it as coldness, as indifference, even as silent rejection. But what Elena is doing is the opposite of rejection. She is protecting herself from the effect he has on her. Because if she relaxes too much, if she holds his gaze a moment too long, he is going to notice what she feels, and that terrifies her. Third signal. If a woman's behavior shifts when you are present. Pay attention. Behavioral changes are never random or neutral. Signal 4. Your name appears in her conversations, even when you are not part of them. This is perhaps the most revealing signal of all, and also the easiest to miss, because if no one tells you, you have no way of knowing it is happening. When someone occupies your thoughts frequently, they begin to appear naturally in what you say. Not because you are deliberately trying to talk about them, but because they are so present in your mind that they slip into conversations without you meaning for it to happen. A woman who misses you will reference you in situations where you are not relevant. She will mention something you once said while discussing a completely different topic. She will compare a current experience to something you shared together. She will say, "It reminds me of when," and you are the person at the center of that memory. And if someone asks why she brought you up, she will genuinely be surprised herself. "I don't know. I just thought of him." That is not coincidence. That is someone who is living with you in their thoughts far more often than they would ever admit if you ask them directly. In my years of research and observation, I have found that when a person mentions someone else repeatedly and involuntarily in their conversations, it speaks to an emotional bond that has not been resolved. Not always romantic love, though very often it is, but always a significant mental presence. Someone who still occupies space, even if they no longer occupy time. Has this happened to you? Have you noticed someone bringing up your name in contexts where there was no logical reason for it? If the answer is yes, you already know what it means. Fourth signal. When a woman misses you, you appear in her words, even when you are not part of the conversation, because in her mind, you are always nearby. Signal 5. She treats you with a quiet tenderness she does not give to anyone else. This is the deepest signal of all. In my opinion, it is also the most honest. And the hardest to ignore once you learn to see it. It is not a grand gesture. It is not a dramatic declaration. It is not something you can screenshot and show a friend saying, "Look, she's in love with me." It is something far softer, far more delicate, almost invisible. It is the tone she uses with you, slightly warmer, slightly more careful, more gentle than the tone she uses with anyone else. It is that she remembers how you take your coffee, even when no one else does. It is that when she speaks to you, her eyes stay a half second longer than they need to. It is that when there is tension in a room and everyone else is distracted or tense, she turns toward you instinctively, as if searching for a point of calm in the middle of the noise. These are micro gestures, small attentions that, taken separately, seem to mean nothing. But together, they tell a very clear story. Quiet tenderness is the most honest way a woman expresses longing, because it is largely involuntary. She cannot control it entirely. It flows from a place she may not even consciously recognize as nostalgia or affection. Think of Roberto and Carmen. They have been in that ambiguous situation for months, the kind many men know well. Not a couple, not just friends. Something unfinished between them, but neither has put it into words. In group settings, Carmen treats everyone with naturalness and warmth. But with Roberto, there is something different, something a careful observer would notice. She passes him the bread before he asks for it. She reminds him to call his mother because he mentioned it in passing weeks ago. When he says something, even something unremarkable, she is the first to smile. And when Roberto goes quiet for longer than usual, Carmen sends him a brief, silent glance, a question without words. Roberto does not quite notice, or he notices, but does not know what to do with it. And Carmen continues with her quiet tenderness, without naming what she feels, perhaps waiting without fully knowing it, for the day he finally sees her. Now I want to do something together with you. Think about the last 30 days. Think about the people you have interacted with, in person, by phone, or by message. And ask yourself honestly, is there someone who sent you a message without a very clear reason? Is there someone who knows things about you that they should not know if they were not paying you special attention? Is there someone whose behavior shifts subtly when you are near? Is there someone who has mentioned your name in conversations where you had no reason to appear? Is there someone who gives you a small, quiet, constant tenderness that they do not give to anyone else? If there is someone like that in your life, I am asking you, please do not overlook it. Because one of the things that has affected me most deeply across all these years of work is witnessing two people who genuinely cared for each other fail to recognize each other in time. Not for lack of feeling, but for lack of language. For not knowing how to read what the other was saying without words. Recognizing these signals does not mean you need to act immediately. It does not mean you need to make a declaration. It means you are seeing more clearly, and from clarity, you can make more conscious, more thoughtful decisions. You can create space for connection if that is what you want. You can meet that tenderness with a tenderness of your own. You can ask one simple, direct, completely human question. Anh Chiu Rao Fiu one day, and Chiu Wired. I Chu, are you okay? You've seemed different with me lately. Sometimes that is all it takes to open a door that has been closed for months. Today you have learned 5 things a woman does when she misses you. Things almost no man knows how to read. The first, she looks for pretexts to reach out. Messages with no apparent logical reason that carry a deeply emotional one. The second, she knows more about you than she lets on. She pays attention in silence, remembers the details, follows you in ways you cannot always see. The third, her behavior changes when you are present. She tenses, she softens, she becomes different because you produce an effect in her that she cannot fully control. The fourth, your name surfaces in her conversations without any obvious reason, because in her mind, you are far more present than she would ever admit. The fifth, she offers you a small, discreet tenderness that she gives to no one else, attention so quiet they are nearly invisible. But together, they say something unmistakable. Now, before I close, I want to leave you with something important. Learning to read these signals is not a tool for manipulation. It is not a map for conquest. It is an invitation to be more present, to look more carefully, to value what someone is offering you in silence before they decide to keep that silence forever. Because that also happens. Women who are not seen eventually stop signaling. They stop inventing reasons to get close. They stop changing when you are near. They stop saying your name, and they quietly withdraw that tender attention, saving it for someone who knows how to recognize it. I do not want that to happen to you. After all these years studying what brings people together and what pulls them apart, the deepest truth I have found is this: real connection is not lost for lack of love. It is lost for lack of attention, for not knowing how to recognize what the other person is offering in the language they know how to speak. And that language is often not verbal. It is a sustained glance, a repeated gesture, a quiet, constant presence. Real love, in its most honest and lasting forms, rarely arrives with grand theater. It arrives in silence. It arrives in small, repeated actions. It arrives in a cup of coffee passed before you asked for it, in a message with no apparent reason, in a look that lasts just a moment too long. The question is not whether she still misses you. The question is, are you paying attention? Thank you for being here, for taking the time to understand rather than simply react. That already says something about who you are.